Ferrero answers the most uncomfortable question: would he coach Sinner after breaking with Carlos Alcaraz? Stay until the end of the video and subscribe to find out all the details about the new relationship between Ferrero and Sinner. During an interview on SHOCKS, in which he hinted that Carlos Alcaraz's entourage may have contributed to his split with the world number one after the best year of his career, Juan Carlos Ferrero also spoke about Jannik Sinner. Specifically, he was asked whether he would accept a proposal from the Italian to coach him despite being the biggest rival of his former protégé. The Valencian coach, far from closing the door on a hypothetical partnership with Sinner, refused to say "I'd never drink from that water. Right now I don't know. He's an amazing player who, together with Alcaraz, is proving they are the two who fight for everything, and I'm not going to say no," he said. "If the opportunity comes and if everything with Alcaraz has truly come to an end, I would have to think about it," he added. That said, for the moment and despite having received 4 interesting offers, Ferrero will now begin a new adventure as coach of Angel Ayora. What Jannik Sinner said about the comment slave to tennis made by Carlos Alcaraz's former coach. Carlos Alcaraz, at just 22 years old, has become one of the most sincere and human voices in today's tennis. In a recent documentary series, he confessed that his biggest fear is that tennis might end up becoming an obligation. He said that at times he feels enslaved by the sport, which generates anxiety and frustration. These words not only show his vulnerability, but also raise a change of paradigm in how athletes relate to their profession. It's not just about winning, but about how the process is lived. These statements did not go unnoticed. Juan Carlos Ferrero, his coach until recently, also appeared in the series and made his position clear. According to Ferrero, Alcaraz has a very different idea of work and sacrifice. For him, a high-performance mindset implies setting aside certain comforts in favor of success. Ferrero hinted that this more flexible approach from his pupil was incompatible with the team's philosophy. The differences eventually led to their professional separation. Jannik Sinner, the current world number one and Alcaraz's direct rival, has also spoken out. Sinner follows a strict routine focused on performance and discipline, but that does not prevent him from observing with interest what Alcaraz represents. Sinner has acknowledged that reaching the top requires much more than talent, and although he respects Alcaraz's attempt to seek happiness, he doubts that such a formula works on today's tour. However, his tone was not critical, but reflective. This clash of philosophies is not just an issue between coaches and players, it reflects a generational conflict within the sport. The old school, represented by Ferrero, understands success as a long-distance race where pleasures, free time, and often mental health are sacrificed. Alcaraz, on the other hand, belongs to a generation that puts uncomfortable questions on the table. Is it worth winning if you lose your identity along the way? Is it sustainable to live under constant pressure? The professional divorce between Ferrero and Alcaraz also reveals something deeper. When the fundamental values of player and coach do not align, the relationship cracks. Ferrero tried to instill iron discipline, but if the player does not share that vision, what once was motivation becomes a burden. Instead of pushing him forward, the method began to weigh on Alcaraz, generating internal tensions that ultimately made it impossible to continue. Meanwhile, Sinner watches, analyzes, and grows. He too may reach a point where sacrifice outweighs reward, but for now his approach seems aligned with traditional methods. Still, the fact that he respects Alcaraz's stance shows that even within the strictest systems, there is room for debate. It's not about who is right, but about which path is sustainable for each person. Ferrero's departure from Alcaraz's team was more than a professional split, it symbolized a personal change of direction. Alcaraz no longer wants to follow a path laid out by others. He wants to build his own, where success is not at odds with enjoyment. This decision is not easy, especially in a sport that demands constant perfection. However, his courage in speaking openly about his fears and desires has opened a door that other athletes may be looking to cross in silence. Ferrero's figure, though questioned by some after the separation, represents a school that has delivered many results. But even the most successful methods can lose effectiveness if they do not adapt to new generations. Ferrero saw Alcaraz as a diamond in the rough, but perhaps tried to shape him in his own image, without leaving enough space for the young player to define his own. This rigidity may work for a time, but eventually the player needs autonomy. Sinner, meanwhile, continues to show admirable competitive maturity. His rise has not been accompanied by scandals or public conflicts, but that does not mean his path has been easier. His methodical and reserved style has worked for him, but it also shows that not all players need the same things to perform at their best. The Sinner-Alcaraz case demonstrates that there is no single formula for success. Each athlete must build their own balance between ambition and well-being. It is also important to talk about the emotional impact of these decisions. Breaking with a coach is not just changing technicians, it means distancing yourself from a figure who has been a guide, mentor, and emotional support. The relationship between Ferrero and Alcaraz was intense and long-lasting, which is why its end carries symbolic weight. It is the moment when the protégé decides to fly solo, even if that means doubt, uncertainty, and public criticism. Amid all this, Alcaraz's message is clear: he wants to be a champion without ceasing to be a happy person. He wants to love what he does, not feel forced to do it. This desire, though it may sound simple, is revolutionary in a system that often glorifies suffering as part of the process. His honesty may open a new chapter in sport, one where emotions are not suppressed, but recognized as part of the journey. Time will tell whether his decision was the right one. What is undeniable is that Alcaraz has started a necessary conversation. He has placed at the center of the debate something that is often hidden, that behind every title, every trophy, and every ranking, there is a person dealing with fears, pressures, and aspirations. And by doing so, he has shown that an athlete's value is not measured solely by victories, but also by their ability to remain true to themselves. More than a month after the professional split between Juan Carlos Ferrero and Alcaraz became public, the former coach has admitted that his heart broke, although he noted that he is recovering. "My heart broke. Am I recovering? Yes, little by little, but my heart is hurt. I would like to think that his is too, in that sense, and obviously he has to move forward because he's the one competing. He's also younger and will recover sooner," he said in an interview on El Partidazo de Cope. He explained that, for now, he prefers not to watch the Merchant Players matches in Melbourne. "Everything is very recent. You get a bit melancholic and a bit sad. You feel everything that has happened and it's not easy right now. I'm better now, time heals everything and you process it better, but right now I don't really feel like watching matches." In this regard, he said he is trying to disconnect a bit and that watching the team he worked with for so long makes him feel a bit melancholic and sad and brings back everything that has happened. "It's not easy to watch the matches right now," he reiterated. He also referred to the role Alcaraz could play in the first Grand Slam of the season. "Carlos works very well with clear motivation, and he comes into this tournament very motivated by his desire to win it and complete the Grand Slam. I see Carlos as a slight favorite because I see him very motivated, and when he smells blood he's very hard to beat," added Ferrero, who did not dare to set limits on his former pupil. "His ceiling is very high. Can he be the best in history? He can be. He has the ability. Then many things can influence it: injuries, motivation. He has to take great care of himself because he's very explosive. Can he surpass Djokovic? He can. He has the ability," Juan Carlos Ferrero added. A tennis legend points out Djokovic's big mistake with Alcaraz and Sinner. Mats Wilander, former world number 1, has described Novak's statements in which he downplays himself compared to the two best players of the moment as a mistake. Novak Djokovic's run at the Australian Open has been smooth. Despite being one of the tournament's veterans, age does not seem to weigh on the Serbian, who has already reached the quarterfinals, where he will face Lorenzo Musetti. Expectations around Noel suggested he would struggle against Carlos Alcaraz or Jannik Sinner due to the injuries he has carried in recent years. However, Djokovic is proving why he is considered one of the greatest tennis players in history. Despite his strong performance, the winner of 24 Grand Slams has repeatedly stated that his current level is inferior to that of the two best players in the world today. For a tennis legend, this is a glaring mistake coming from the Serbian. Of course Novak Djokovic is a little slower than before, but he still plays incredibly well, says Mats Wilander, former world number 1, in his column for L'Equipe. "His serve is just as effective, his forehand is extremely powerful, and frankly, I can't imagine him losing before the semi-finals, no matter who his opponent is, as long as their name isn't Sinner or Alcaraz." Novak has a lot of confidence against all his potential opponents, except those two, Wilander adds. Although Mats himself also believes Novak is not at the level of Sinner or Alcaraz, he rejects the idea of saying it publicly. "I'm surprised that he keeps saying so often that they are the best in the world and that they are much better than him. Whether it's true or not, even if it's a sign of humility, he shouldn't say it." Finally, the former tennis player believes it may be part of Djokovic's own philosophy to take pressure off during the major. He's probably trying to relieve pressure and make people forget that he's still a contender for the biggest things. "I don't think it's a strategy, it's simply his philosophy," Wilander concludes in his column.